Hi there. It's been a while since I made a English vlog, and I know the lighting is a bit off, so I'm sorry for that. Um, the reason I'm making this vlog right now is with regards to a cafe interview that I just listened to, Being Buried Alive Death Research, which is in two parts, where a being speaks about their life review, specifically with regards to the way they died as being buried alive, and the specific events within their life that led up to that moment and how they experienced themselves in that moment. And I found it a very, very fascinating review. Um, Also because being buried alive has been my biggest fear when I was younger. And still, I mean, when you imagine being buried alive, I can completely place myself in that position of being in that confined space and being in that moment where you realize that there's just no way out and it's just you all alone with yourself. And the way that the being in this interview described their experiences was so amazingly um, just so amazingly truthful. Like, this is simply how it will happen, and you know that that's how it is. And when you place yourself in that position, in their shoes, and you kind of imagine that it would happen to you, then you know that it's inevitable, that these experiences um, are so extremely painful, and yet they are inevitable. There is no mercy, there is nothing, there is no savior. You're just all alone and you're dying. And what I wanted to discuss in this vlog specifically has to do with a point that came up within myself while I was listening to the interviews, um, and while I was imagining myself in their shoes going through that experience. Was this experience would come up within me of sadness, like being sad that it's all over, and also like a sadness in a way of like pitying myself, or like thinking in my mind that this isn't supposed to happen because I'm a good person and I've lived a good life. And so, because within my life I've always tried to be a good person, believing that the world will treat me in kind, that the world will be good to me, and that God or whatever force directs this universe will be good to me. Where if you go through an excruciatingly painful event like being buried alive, where you go through the all the stages of despair and pain without any intervention of God in any way, without in any way anyone, any angel helping you, or your parents holding your hand while you're going through the painful experience of being smothered and just simply not having any air, and your body contracting, and you just completely going absolutely insane within your mind because you cannot reconcile with that moment and what is actually busy happening. So in that moment I see that experience would come up like pity, a form of pity, a form of self-pity and sadness within this preconceived idea that I've allowed to exist within myself, that somehow the world is a just place, that if I'm a good person and I do my best, and I really work hard to be good to others and to live by certain morality principles, etc., then I will be rewarded, then these painful events will not happen to me, then this will not in any way occur, because that's basically how my life was when I was a child, is that as long as I was a good little girl, as long as I behaved, my environment responded in kind, and I would never find myself in a bad position or experience. That's how it went. That's how it worked. If you're a bad girl or person, you get punished and you experience pain. If you're a good person, you don't experience pain, and everybody takes care of you, and the world is happy, and everybody's friendly to you, and everybody's nice and happy and wonderful and perfect. So being then in that position of, for instance, being buried alive and experiencing this excruciating pain where you're all alone with yourself, and then that experience would come up like self-pity, which is like, or sadness, which is basically like an experience and thoughts within your mind that is completely based on this idea that I do not exist alone. There is a God out there in whichever form that takes care of me, and I've been a good person all throughout my life, so now I have to get my reward, and so now I don't have to go through all of this. And which is like the mind trying to make sense of the situation based on these belief systems that I've allowed to exist within myself, which actually have nothing to do with reality, with the reality of the situation, which is that I am actually completely alone in existence, and that this reality is not fair, it is not just in any way, it is just a physical reality. Is completely pre-programmed. I mean, when shit happens, there is no such thing as mercy. Only people who have money are able to take care of their children, are able to create this illusion for their children that as long as you behave, things will be nice. You will not experience pain. You will be perfectly fine and okay. Because pain is always then associated with being punished, Where this is only when in families where parents have money, whereas, and the fact that these people have money is completely based on a system of inequality that doesn't care about people. There are certain countries, and if you're born in that country, you can be lucky to have money all your life and you take it for granted, and if you're born in another country, then you just get shoved aside and nobody cares about you. For what reason? There is no reason. It's just how it happens. It's just where you're born. And so I could remember the story of Job, and how within the destiny process of walking the journey to life, it was stated that it will be similar to the story of Job in the Bible, where Job basically loses everything and always turns to God and expects God's mercy, because Job believes that, I've been a good person all my life, and so God is supposed to be fair and God is supposed to be just, and so why is God taking everything from me? Why is this happening to me? And so every time again Job ends up at that point of despair, where every time again it's like he builds himself up again from that point where he lost something and went into despair, and then again he keeps losing everything and losing more and more and more and more and more, and he just can't accept the fact that God is not just. He can't accept the fact that it doesn't matter how much he tries to be a good person. If shit happens, shit fucking happens, no matter how good he's trying to be. He's not going to get any reward for it. He is alone in this physical existence, and his life experience is completely determined by the physical rules, by the world and reality that he's been born into, where whether or not he's a good person doesn't make any difference whatsoever. I mean, if you're born in a family who doesn't have money and who is starving, then you will starve as well, and you will die a very slow and painful death, no matter how much you try to be a good person. It just doesn't matter, because that's just the way the world works. And so that was a very interesting wake up call that I was faced with during hearing this interview, where it showed me that I was really still existing within the mind construct, where basically I'm giving away my responsibility towards myself to walk in every moment of breath in absolute stability and consistency, because somewhere in the back of my mind I still believe that the world of relationships is more real than the actual physical reality. You know, the world of feelings and the world of thoughts and feelings and reactions and imaginations, and that is more real than the physical reality, where in the world of feelings what reigns is these belief systems with regards to how reality apparently works, with the emphasis on apparently, because these belief systems is what I've learned from my parents during my growing up in this world, where I believe in things like fairness, where I believe that, if I'm a good person, then the world will smile at me and everything will be fine and everything will be great and wonderful, and where I place my trust in people, because they all look so nice and they look so happy and friendly, and and when I smile at them, they smile back at me, and it gives me a nice feeling. And so it seems and it looks as though we're all kind of in a way connected with each other, and we all care about each other, and if I care about them, they'll care about me, and in that way I'll always in a way get my reward for being a good person and for being so friendly and so polite and everything. Where this is a complete denial of reality, because actual reality is is that fairness doesn't exist. Actual reality is that when I die, or when my body dies, there is no one that's going to help me. There is no one that's going to stand at my side. All these people who have been smiling at me throughout my life, who have been so friendly and kind and nice to me throughout my life, all those people that I formed relationships with, all those people that I felt so connected to during my life, will not be there to hold my hand and will not be there to make me feel safe and to take away the pain, as what my parents did when I was a kid. They were there to take away the pain, to give me medication when I was sick. They just did everything. And it was really as if my parents would be there forever, holding my hand throughout every bad experience. Whereas the reality is that when I die, when the body decides to die, that it's time for me to die, then they will not be there to hold my hand, and it will all have been a lie. All these values that I've been holding on to, all these moments that I've given value in my mind, like friendship and having a relationship and experiencing love and experiencing a family and togetherness and connectedness and oneness, and all those wonderful, wonderful experiences will all have been a lie, an illusion that I placed my trust in. And I will be like Job, calling out in despair and self-pity for why is this happening to me, but I thought, but I thought, that moment where you realize that your ideas about how reality functions have been a lie, and that you've been lying to yourself, and you've allowed yourself to be lied to by not sticking to reality in every moment, by not investigating reality in every moment. And I mean, I can imagine the immense regret that I would experience when finally I die and my life flashes before my eyes and I see everything of my life just evaporating into thin air because it was all just an illusion, because I've always just been alone with myself, that I would experience such immense regret because I know that I could have done it differently. I could have stuck to reality. I could have in every moment applied the tools of breath and just grounding myself in every moment, and I could have been more consistent and I could have applied myself more, but I didn't. And now it's all over and it was all a lie. That moment when you realize just how much potential of yourself and of your life you have wasted on an illusion. And so, on that note, I would strongly suggest for anyone to listen to this specific interviews of the death research. I haven't heard them all, so my suggestion would be the Buried Alive thing that spoke to me immediately, so that's why I listened to it, because I recognize that fear within myself. And so I mean, there's many death research already that have already been walked in the Ikafe interviews, of specific ways of beings coming through the portal, explaining in detail the specific way in which they died, like, I don't know, falling from a building, or drowning, or whatever. There's many interviews that are definitely very interesting and worth listening to, as it will assist you greatly in really facing the facts, the factual reality, and really waking you up and getting you back here, where in a moment you just realize that you've been lost in your mind somewhere, and that reality is not the mind, is not what the mind can produce as thoughts, feelings, and emotions, where as long as you are in that space, it all seems so real because you're constantly repeating it to yourself. Whereas when, for instance, you give yourself the opportunity to, for instance, investigate the destiny material through listening to an Ikafe interview, you give yourself that opportunity to snap back out of this mind consciousness system where you've been isolating yourself basically from reality, because these interviews and the destiny material is from beings that have already walked their process extensively, and that already have brought themselves to a point where they can actually express themselves in a real way, in a real, like, practical, physically stable way, which will then assist you in actually realizing for yourself the reality, and snapping out for a moment, snapping out of the illusionary mind reality that you've been existing in. And alright, so I hope you enjoyed my little review of the death review or death research, and so definitely suggest to buy the interview or any of the other interviews. They're all pretty damn awesome. to check out the Destiny material, the Destiny website, and enjoy.